For.
Mr. Chair.
I call the honourable member Jackie Dean.
Just very briefly, Mr. Chair, in reply to the member's SOP speech, treating land as a reserve over a period of time does not make it a reserve, and that is exactly what this bill is addressing. I think that the comments around issues around the district plan are a red herring, because what this bill does is deals with the status of the land and the status of the land only. This land cannot remain a reserve because it never was a reserve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I call the honourable Annette King.
Mr. Chairman, seldom do I disagree with the work and comments of Eugenie Sage, and she's a very thorough member and is very knowledgeable. But on this particular clause, I believe that she is wrong. I understand the issue of principle, and I absolutely agree that the consultation process by the Council was poor. And in fact, we told them when they came to the Select Committee that their consultation process would be poor. I don't think anybody on the Select Committee would disagree with that. But at the end of the day, that is not a good enough reason not to support this bill, because it's been 2 years in the making. Well, probably over longer than 2 years, but 2 years before this House at least. And so I think it is time that it was resolved and finished. And I understand the member and the chair wanting the opportunity, to act as a minister, because this will probably be her only opportunity to be sitting there, to be sitting in the committee chair. And I understand her wanting to drag it out. What I don't really understand is why she would want to do that, in that there is agreement for this bill for her. We support the work that she's done. We congratulate her on bringing a bill to this House. I do believe that the Select Committee did a lot of thorough work to ascertain what was the status of the piece of land that was in dispute, the lookout point. And there was no doubt there was confusion in the evidence and confusion over what had happened there. And there was a number of submissions put to us that raised doubt about the status of this land, whether it was endowment land or whether it was reserve land. At the end of the day, I had to believe what was told to us by officials who went away, who did the legal checks, who went through the historic records and came back and said and assured us that the decisions we were making were the correct decisions. Now, you might not agree with everything officials say at times, but we did send them away not once but several times to get us more information about this piece of land. We wanted to make the best possible decision, and I think that we have made the right decision about the only controversial part of this bill, and that is the status of Lookout Point. Just the last thing I'd like to say is that I want to commend two people who made submissions to the Select Committee, Warren Crawford and Barry Monks. Now, I know that some on the government side were a little scornful of Barry Monks because he was a Labour Party, because he was a... Thank you, Maggie. I was going to say it myself. I didn't actually need your help, because I'm not ashamed of the fact... I'm not ashamed of the fact that Barry Monks was a Labour Party candidate. I don't know whether that means anything he says is wrong, but if Maggie Barry had read his submission and said, if she'd read it, she'd see he did an incredible amount of work. That he went into the records, he went to Dunedin, he searched to try and get the right information about this bill. I want to commend Barry Monks on his submission, and I'm sorry that at the end of it, it did not stack up, because there was one fundamental mistake in what the whole argument was premised on, and that was that he believed a bill had been passed that in fact changed the status of the land or secured the status of the land. In fact, the bill never came to the Parliament, it was never passed, and therefore the premise on which he was basing his argument did not stack up. That does not mean it was not a very good submission, and I thank him. Goodness me. Look, for the people who are listening, Maggie Barry, who has not stopped interjecting through the whole of my speech, is saying that democracy is a waste of time. Well, we don't believe it is. We believe democracy is a very important part of our system here in this Parliament. And Barry Monks and Warren Crawford took the opportunity to go to the Select Committee, present a submission, appear before the committee. In fact, they appeared through telecommunications rather than in person. We are so modern at our committee. But they took that opportunity, and Maggie Barry, that is democracy, and they had the right to do that. We should be applauding them. It is not, as she is interjecting, a waste of time. It was a very important submission, and Mr Chairman, we would like to see this bill passed. There's only 7 clauses. The members had the chance to stand up and be a minister. Let's get it over and done with.
I call the honourable member Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Take a call on behalf of New Zealand First.